Welcome, everybody, to another rendition of the Lone Wolf Show. And this is a special one because this is the first interview that we've been specifically for the Witchy Kids Network. And we have a pagan author for children right here on the Lone Wolf Show. Christine, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
So, Christine, you're a published author for children's books. And, I've interviewed tons of authors for, adults, particularly with the craft and paganism and, metaphysics and magic and things. What caused or brought you to writing for the younger audience?
Well, I frequent a lot of New Age shops like most pagans do. And I noticed that they do have, a multitude of books, but they didn't have books for children like ages like 5 to say 11. And I was just kind of like, wow, what do the pagan parents do for teaching, like in general? Because I know like there's, so many books when I was raising my children, I would read to them and, pertaining to their milestones or things that were going on in their lives and so on and so forth. So that's what started this whole process of me thinking, wow, this seems like this could be a niche and that I could be giving back to the pagan community. And that's how I started with writing for pagan children.
And what year did you first start the idea, or what year did you first start writing the first manuscript? And was it the Cauldron Bubbles, or was it the other book that was first?
The first book was Pentacle Party, and I started it last year, so it was 2024, and it was July of 2024. And then I actually honestly came up with 10 books that I wanted to write because I decided I wanted to do a series of books. I didn't want just one book. I wanted my character to be carried out through many books. So Pentacle Party came out so it must have been, we're in 2020, so it must have been 2023 because we're in 2025. So Pentacle Party came out last April of 2024, and then I had already started writing the manuscript for Cauldron Bubbles. So they were kind of back to back, and then Cauldron Bubbles was finally published.
So the Pentacle Party one, I did try to read a bio on, I think it was either Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And, for the audience, these two pagan books written by a practicing pagan and someone that's involved in the craft can be purchased at Barnes and Noble and Amazon. And all you have to do is either type in these titles, Cauldron Bubbles, or you said Pentacle Party, or by the author's name, Christine. And I don't want to butcher your last name, so please help me out.
It's Bourbeau.
Bourbeau. So Kristen Bourbeau at Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Is there any other place that you can purchase these books besides those two places?
You can go on if you're looking to do a bulk order, like a store is looking to order multiple copies. You can go right onto Ingram Spark, and they will have all my books available for purchase there. There's multiple platforms. It's everywhere. When I set up with Amazon, they just gave me a list of everywhere. When the publishing went through, it's just like, okay, now you're published on this platform and you're published on that platform, but I can easily get a list of other platforms that it can be purchased also.
Mm-hmm. And that makes a lot of sense that, as if there's a witchy shop or a metaphysical shop and they don't carry a section for, the kiddos, it's kind of an opportunity right now, right here, to go ahead and check that out and, to purchase 10 or 15 copies of a bulk purchase and see how it goes. I think that the vendors and our witchy entrepreneurs would be surprised on how many witchy parents go through there and then would pick them up for their kids. And if you're wanting to buy a single copy, I did see the prices were pretty reasonable. It's like $12 for one copy. So that's very, very reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they come in paperback, it's hardcover, and also an ebook.
So in your bio, it says that you do have children with your husband, and you have like a family, and you have a pagan household, a witchy household, which
No.
sounds really, really cool. Before these books were written, were there other publications for the kiddos, for the children in the home that were a go-to, or was that just not available? And did that help you kind of make the decision to write these books?
No. Honestly, there was nothing like that in my household at that time when my children were, younger. I just had the regular books. I mean, like the critter books and Goodnight Moon and just the Berenstain Bears and things like that,
Right.
which I love all those authors. But it's just, there was nothing explaining the holidays, nothing explaining, tolerance, nothing explaining, things that my children at a younger age may have been going through. It was all teens and up. It's like, which are great books if you're a teenager, but you got to get it down to a child level. There's a difference between a 13-year-old's mentality and a 5-year-old's, and trying to understand it. So my books, I look at it as, bringing it down a level for a child to understand, but they're also learning from the book. It's not just, it's very hard to, I guess, explain, because it always seemed like I'd look at a book and I'd be like, how does a child understand what this means? So that's why I was like, there's got to be a better way to teach, pagan children, but not also be inclusive. And if it was not a pagan child, they could pick up that book and understand what being on a pagan path means. So I don't want to pigeonhole myself and say I'm just a pagan writer, but I'm trying to be inclusive and offer tolerance. And when a child goes to school, there's no saying that they're going to be with just, Abrahamic religious children, right? So if they come across a friend or a classmate that's pagan, at least they will have, understanding of why are they wearing that pentacle? What does that mean? And that's what fueled all this. It's like, how many times people are, say to me, oh, are you Jewish? No, it's not the Star of David, it's a pentacle. Oh, are you satanic? No, I'm not satanic. I'm a pagan. There's differences, and I'm just trying to educate, but in a fun way.
Your book here, The Pentacle Party, can you give me like a brief narrative of what the Adventures of Aggie is in the Pentacle Party? From what I understand, it was a gift. It was brought home, and then it's like an explanation of what it is. Like, how much detail do you go into when you talk about like what the pentacle means? Like, did you get into detail with it, or was it how did you present it to a younger audience?
So yeah, the Pentacle Party was me introducing Aggie as a 9-year-old who is pagan, letting the world know she's pagan, and also her friends letting them know, obviously, she's pagan. And it was her mother giving her first pentacle at the age of 9. That was the proper age where she could have respect for wearing a pentacle. And in my book, I explain the mother is talking to her in the kitchen when she opens up her gift. It's on her 9th birthday, and she's looking at it and goes, oh, what a beautiful star. And her mother's explaining to her, it's more than a star. And she goes through and talks about the different, points of the star, earth, water, fire, spirit, and explains it on that level. And then when her friends come over for her party, she's all excited to, show her friend what she received for her gift. And then she also has a friend, Olive, who is Christian. And she's like, oh, look, I'm wearing my crucifix. And it's like, yeah, and this is my pentacle, and this is what it means. And so she reiterates what her mother just taught her on how to show reverence and what that pentacle means. It has meaning behind it.
So one of our viewers said, I love her idea. I wish there were kiddo books when I was raising my 5 daughters on this. This is awesome.
Thank you.
So yeah, we can already see like, and I know who that was. That was an old crone of the Cabots, and it's just kind of really fascinating. Where maybe it's time to go towards different avenues. Like, how many books do we really need for adults, and how many second, third generational families are starting to raise their kids? And do you think that there's a difference between tolerance and acceptance when it comes to, a child going to school, pre-high school, and wearing a pentacle, because I think that's okay, because a lot of the other children are, display their lifestyle too, I'm sure, reflected from their family too. So is there a difference between tolerance and acceptance?
I think there is. If you're tolerant, you're understanding that where that person is coming from. Acceptance is accepting that that person is pagan and that is their path. In my world, there is a difference. Some people are tolerant of it, and okay, that's great that you're wearing that. And there's other people that are accepting of it and being like, they're fine with it. They don't have an issue. They're going to tolerate you wearing that, but it doesn't mean I like it. You know what I'm saying? Accepting it is like, I'm okay with it. It's cool. That's great. But there is a difference. So in my books, I'm teaching that there, it's to be tolerant, to be understanding, to not judge before you really understand. And I find that, I've been judged. I've been guilty of that too. When I was a younger person, a teen, I had a friend that didn't celebrate Christmas. And what was the first words out of my mouth? Like, oh, what are you, satanic? Who doesn't celebrate Christmas? And lo and behold, she was a Jehovah's Witness. I had no idea. In my world, it was like, there's only, so I know like there's going to be other children that are going to be in this situation, and it's not easy. It's definitely not. And especially when it comes to the holidays, classrooms will celebrate, they'll celebrate certain holidays, and then, the pagan holidays come along and nobody seems to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it. They don't want to do it. And that's where my Samhain Pumpkins book comes in, because I'm literally doing books for all the holidays and in the series. And this is Aggie's adventure through her eyes, showing her friends, and her cousins who are also pagan, how they celebrate for a better understanding.
So within the Cauldron Bubbles book, and also it's Aggie's still the main character. She's in both of these books, and she's also going to be in Samhain Pumpkin.
Correct. All my books have Aggie as the main character, and her cousins Lenore and Alfie are in there randomly, and then her friends are Olive, who is Christian, and then she has a new friend that comes into the Samhain Pumpkins book. Her name's Carly, and she happens to be Jewish.
Reminds me of that song, "The Christians and the Pagans" by Dar Williams. I think it reminds me of that for some reason. If there was theme music for these books, I think that's what the first thing that pops in my head. Very cool. What Holy Day Sabbath is Pentacle Party? What?
Oh no, Pentacle Party was her birthday, her ninth birthday, receiving that. But the Samhain Pumpkins is about Samhain and how we celebrate Halloween and why we celebrate Halloween. And in the book, Aggie explains to her friends that it's not all about costumes and candy. And we pay reverence to our ancestors, and this is why we do it. And they're carving pumpkins, and she's explaining to them, like, we're lighting these pumpkins, and it's a week celebration. And then her friends are like, oh, that sounds scary that you invite your ancestors to join you. And then at the end of the book, they realize, oh, I really like to see my grandfather, or I'd really like to see my grandmother again.
So are you self-publishing these books?
No. Well, I guess I am, but I'm working with Amazon Online Publishing. So they're editing they're setting everything up, but I'm doing all the legwork behind it. I picked out all my characters. I, pretty much designed everything. They have their own designer that did my book, covers and the colors and the characters, but I picked out what I wanted them to look like.
Is there ever a time when the editors for Amazon tell you that, well, they don't think you should say this or have this as a plot or a storyline? Do they ever do that? Do they ever bring that as an obstacle to you?
No, I've actually had no issues with them. I highly recommend them. They've been great. I mean, if I don't, they send me, the mock-up, and if I don't like it, they ask me point blank, what do you want to change? I don't like the color of this. I don't like the even the fonts of certain books that I've had. I'm like, no, that doesn't look right. Everything down to Aggie's hair color. That was a big thing, because my envision was a little redheaded girl, so, they were having a hard time with that, trying to match it and just make her who I envisioned her, without copying copyright issues from other characters. So that's something. So Aggie is specifically, like, she is my character. Like, I own her, So, and my books have been gone through the Library of Congress. So I own all the copyright for them. So which I feel is very important.
Does Aggie have a last name?
She does not in the book. She does have a mom. And she has a pet named Silas, but the interesting thing about my books is that all my characters are named after my beloved animals. All the animals I've had over the years, the characters are named after, and I love animals deeply, and I wanted them to, kind of live on through the pages of my books. So Aggie is actually my guinea pig that I have. Her cousin Lenore is another guinea pig I have. Alfie is my cat. Silas is an actual cat in the book. And her Carly is another cat I had. And the next book I'm going to write, my cat Gemma will be in it.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's been the biggest obstacles when you first started writing these books and getting them published and putting them out there? What's been the learning curves of all this?
Patience. Lots of patience, and understanding how networking works, and being open to different avenues. It was great when it went on to Amazon and it went here and there, and you get to book sales, but it really is all about networking. Like, I've literally gone to Salem and walked around to the different stores, introduced my books, and you have to. And I even did a psychic fair, and I ended up at a major bookstore here in New England and did a book signing and stuff. And there I met different people, and it's all about networking and just being in the right time at the right place, I guess. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't happen overnight. I've been, we're almost 3 years in now. So, and I finally have gotten, books that are showing up at the Pentagram shop in Salem. Crowhaven Corner in Salem has 2 of my books. So it takes time. You just have to have patience. And I guess a lot of it too is believing in what you're working on and what you're doing. I felt very strongly that our pagan community needed books like this for children. And it's not just, I'm not trying to push it just for pagans. It's any child, that can pick up the book and read it and have acceptance or tolerance. I feel like one day they may have a pagan friend, and at least they're understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. For that, I almost feel like during, Samhain time, you'll get a lot more business with the books, because a lot of people are kind of want some, like, a witchy vibe, I guess. And right. I really feel like not only pagan families and mothers and fathers they're going to be buying these books. I feel like even the non-pagans are going to buy the books, so to speak. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Very, very inspiring. Do you have any who inspires you as a writer for pagan children? You mentioned like the Bernstein Bears, and I'm in my 40s. I remember reading that when I was a child too. I mean, what authors or books inspired you as a writer?
Well, I was a big Beverly Cleary reader when I was a young girl, and those books, as you know, are like for younger children. Judy Blume, that's another big one that I absolutely loved. Made funny books, serious books. And obviously, I mean, I've read so many books to my children, and there's serious books that I absolutely love, and you want to find out what the characters are going to do next. So that's what kind of inspired me to be like, I don't want to just write one book about this and then have another whole thing about different characters. I wanted my readers to be excited and want to follow Aggie through her adventures of what she's doing. So she's already, had a birthday party, and then she's learning Cauldron Bubbles is all about doing her first spell. It's very innocent. They're in the basement and they're playing with bubbles. There's nothing dark or scary about it. It's actually comical the way the cat gets covered with bubbles, and it's just things that have happened in my own family, with funny things that happen with children. So it's just trying to make light of it, but also add a side of humor to it. Even in the Samhain Pumpkins book, there's a part where Carly's saying, "You have a lot of pumpkins on your porch." And Aggie's like, we're going to be celebrating Samhain. And she's like, sour what? But that's exactly, that's humor. That's children, right? Understand, that's how they interpret things. So that's how I look at life. And it got to, have a kind of a young at heart attitude, and I've always been an avid reader. I loved books. Even when I was a younger child, I used to write stories. And I've always wanted to write books. I always wanted to write children's books, but I couldn't figure out what avenue. And then I was like, I found my niche, and I'm going to go for it. So I did.
So does Barnes and Noble and Amazon, do they also have these books? They have them in physical form, but can you also buy them like electronic books, like for Kindle and things like that?
Yes, they're all on ebooks also.
Right, that was the word I was looking for.
Yep.
Ebooks.
Yeah.
I like the old-fashioned one, but I know that as time goes on, a lot of the older, the way of the books and having in your hand, there's nothing like having a book in your hand.
Correct.
That's how I feel. But looking to the future in things, I think that eventually the old way is going to be somewhat obsolete, especially with all of that. So I have a challenging question, and this has a lot to do with how books are written. I'm sorry about the helicopter in the background.
That's okay.
When you write your books, do you implement any forms of artificial intelligence like AI into when you write?
I do not. Nope. It's all my imagination and my words.
So my next question has to do with the creative process.
Mm-hmm.
Do you as and I assume that you're a priestess of a tradition, of the Black Forest tradition.
Yes.
In sacred order, you're a priestess. Do you feel that creation is one of the most potent forms of magic?
I do. Well, you create,
right.
You put back out there.
So in a lot of ways, the creation of Aggie and her stories and her travels and is a creation process.
It is.
So there's a lot of like magic that is infused in this. I really get the sense that I really get the sense of your trajectory is like somebody may reach out to you in the future and be like, hey, do you want to make a cartoon out of this? Or do you want to do a comic book, or do you want to do a movie? I just feel like I think that's kind of like that's like the next level with this stuff. So you're out there in Salem, Massachusetts with a bag full of the books and the stories, and you're going to the witchy shops, you're looking around, you're mingling, you're buying a crystal or two or whatnot, and you're saying, hey, would you like to carry my books? That's really, really inspiring. Very, very inspiring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta hustle. That's how I look at it. It's
Right.
like I have to get my books out there, and those shops are the right venues. I mean, they carry pagan books. I mean, I've been looking in different areas and seeing what their children's sections looks like. I go in and I look and I literally analyze. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this store is really gearing up for families. This one, not so much. And I have had, stores like, no, that's not our thing. No, I don't, no. Okay, you have to deal with rejection also. But on the flip side, if you get one store that is interested, then hey, that's that's better than I was a few hours earlier,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened when I went to Pentagram. They only had Pentacle Party in there, 3-4 copies, and I stopped in and they said, oh, we're sold out. And I'm like, you are? So I reached out to the owner, and now he wants 5 copies of each of my books to put in the store, and then he's just going to contact me when he wants to restock. And that's how it starts. And then, but it's just one of those things. It's like I just went out there and I'm like, well, I mean, what do I have to lose? What are they, I won't know unless I ask. So I try to meet with the owners. If they don't have the owners on site, I say, can I leave my information? They take a picture of my books and they'll get back to me.
As far as different witchy shops, organizations, groups, and platforms, which one of them you think is the most family oriented, that has the most available for the pagan kiddos?
So when I was in Salem, I mean, Pentagram had quite a bit of children's stuff, but the one that I hadn't been in a while was the store Blackcraft. I went in there, and the last time I had gone in, they had like a couple onesies and things for little, babies. But when I went in this last time, I was like, wow, they had books, they had clothing, they had stuffed animals, it was like this whole section just for children. I was like, wow, this is incredible. I love it. I'm like, about time, So obviously, I mean, I spoke to the manager and I said, and I showed her my books and I said, I see that you have a children's section. I'd be very interested in, if you would be interested in looking at my books. I'm a pagan writer and I write for children. So keeping my fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm. Are your books in like an audio form too, where you can just kind of hit play and listen to it?
That they are not. But it's funny you mentioned the cartoon situation, because Amazon, when they got Pentacle Party, they asked me if I would be interested in having a YouTube channel for my books. And I was like, huh? And they're like, well, this would be great because it's a series and it just keeps going and children would love that. And I'm like, well, let me see how the books do first, baby steps, and then I'll get back to you on, a possible thing for the future for television.
Right.
So, but yeah, they made the characters in a way in the book, if you notice, that they can be turned into cartoon characters very easily. Mm-hmm. So that's always an option.
So the illustrations of your work so far, do you have an illustrator, or how did that come to be?
Yep. My illustrator is through Amazon Online Publishing, and they set me up with who they felt was most geared towards what I was envisioning for my books. And I'll be honest, I have had switched a few illustrators because it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. But yeah, they worked with me. I mean, they're still obviously working with me, but I have nothing bad to say about them. I mean, they've been very helpful. They helped me get, the copyright done and all set. And that's the other thing. In the Library of Congress, you can't you can't get your work copyrighted if you use AI. They will not allow it. So it's all, it has to be your original work. So they helped me get copyrighted. I mean, everything. So
I did not know that. And that
no,
is very learning. So if you use artificial intelligence to
correct.
write anything, it cannot be copyrighted by the Library of Congress.
Correct.
Wow.
They will not. They will send a notice because they will question it. They'll be like, was AI used? And they'll look through your stuff. And
Right.
the Amazon came back and said, no, this is Christine's original work. It's like, and they would, looking at the illustrations, and the illustrations are all original because I'm the one that came up with the manuscript, and I'm the one that described to them what I wanted for each frame of that book pertaining to what was being told in the story. So it's my vision. It's not AI's vision.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know that Library of Congress could turn it down like that, because I know that there was a lot of authors, and even pagan authors that were writing books, and they're kind of frustrated because they built careers and so many countless, I'm sure, years writing different various texts and manuscripts, and then all of a sudden AI comes along. It's just kind of like write about this, and here you go.
Right.
And somebody has like 100 titles, and they just clicked a few buttons.
No, there's no clicking buttons. I write my own material.
Do you think
that's why it was so important for me to have my work copyrighted, because I didn't want somebody to come along and steal my ideas. So that's a key point right there. It's copyrighted and it's mine. I own it.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that artificial intelligence is going to take over what is the creative process with people who write books in the future?
I definitely see that happening. Mm-hmm. And it makes me sad, because you think about some of the great writers out there and mm-hmm. how they, it was all their imaginations. It's like, even as a young child, I was writing stories that my classmates loved. And it's just because, some people can use their imagination to tell a story that nobody else would even think of, and it's like, it's also taking away, honestly, jobs. I mean, authors, how are they, surviving, they have to survive on their bestsellers. And if somebody comes along and writes a bestseller and it just seems unfair, it's like, I definitely am not I'm not a fan of AI, but
right.
That's because I write my own work. Right.
It's probably an element of, I don't know, human emotion that lacks with AI, maybe, or.
Yeah, definitely. It's, a person's sense of humor. I mean, how would an AI bot know what you're truly trying to tell? How you're trying to make a situation funny,
Right.
So.
An AI bot is almost creepy if they try to have humor. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of creepy. Yeah,
it is. It is.
So, being somebody that's written pagan children's books, and you're on Amazon, and your books are in some of the shops in Salem, Massachusetts, which is a feat in itself. I'm sure there's probably all kinds of authors that would just darlingly love to have their books in a Salem witch shop. It's just, you're in the area, put into work. And what would be your advice to someone that wanted to write their own book, and not necessarily for children, but just a book in general? Like, what would be your advice to them to do it, and to do it successfully?
It would be to, find a good publisher. I mean, because there's a lot of scams out there, which I came upon a few of them. And also, write your story. I mean, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, follow your heart. I mean, honestly, if you feel deeply about something and you really want to have a book, whether it's a poetry book, a child's book, a novel, do it. It's like, to me, like, writing is like therapeutic for me, I enjoy it. I can get my ideas out there, and just you know, follow what you want to do. If somebody tells you, oh, that's crazy, that's a crazy idea. Well, it's your idea, and you just don't know where it's going to take you, and it does take time. I mean, when I started out, 2 years ago, I was like, oh, I got frustrated. I'm not going to lie. I got frustrated, and I was like, oh, I don't think I don't think any children are reading books anymore, but then I just set it aside and went back to it and just kept, plugging along. And I released the next book. And the other thing I did notice is like the timing of releasing a book is key. So like my books are children's books. So now since they're holiday driven, I'm understanding now, okay, so when I released Pentacle Party, it came out like in March of 23. And then, Cauldron Bubbles, I was hoping to get it out before Halloween, and it came out after. So it was kind of like it didn't meet the deadline, but with Sour and Pumpkins, I'm seeing like, okay, this is perfect because it deals with Halloween. It's going to hit that fall time period, and there'll be more interest. So that's another thing, depending on what your genre is, if you're writing a horror story, think about timing of when that book is going to be released. And if it's around Halloween time, it's going to get more exposure, obviously. So I'm learning that. Like my next book after Sour and Pumpkins, I want it to be the Yule Gift. So I'm obviously going to pay attention to the timing and make sure that it comes out right before Yule. So that'll be another, because I do have a following of fans, I guess you could say, book readers that like my books, and they're going to want to buy them for gifts and for their grandchildren or their nieces and nephews. And if it comes out at the right time of the year, it works. So those are some of my thoughts on that.
Christine, let us know one more time where witchy shops, metaphysical shops, or mommies and daddies at home can find your books. Where can they find them?
Okay, so they can be found in Salem. They're in Pentagram, the store Pentagram, Crowhaven Corner right now. And then you can go on Amazon and find them, Barnes and Nobles, and Ingram Spark if you're looking for a bulk order. And there's many more platforms. If anybody's interested, I can, they can message me or whatever, and I can give them all the other platforms that Amazon set me up with, because it's international also. So I have friends that live in Italy, it's in Amazon Italy. If you have friends wherever they are in the world, they can find the books.
Well, Christine, clergy of the Black Forest Coven in Sacred Order, thank you so much for coming on the Lone Wolf Show. Big salute from the Witchy Kids Network on Witchcraft TV, www.witchcrafttv.online, where we are fair representation of all pagan witch and magic paths. All the luck in the world with your writing. And I hope to see your book around one of the witchy shops in the near future. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.